Hey folks, Randy Newberg here with another episode of Leupold's Hunt Talk Radio. Today, I have a wonderful guest from South Dakota. He's probably as much of a pronghorn junkie as I am. Uh, Rob Mahaffey, I always stumble on that, Mahaffey, Haffey. Sorry, Rob, I probably already messed up your name. uh, he is, I first met him through the South Dakota Bowhunters Association, but I found out that his primary pursuit with his bow is pronghorn. And so we stay in touch. And he, when I was out at his place, I don't know, a year and a half ago, we got to talking about his interest in starting a, just a South Dakota based group. And I hope that I gave him enough examples of a lot of other local and regional based groups. It didn't have to be national groups that made a big difference. And so he called me, I don't know, 6, 8 months ago and said, "Hey, I'm doing that." I'm like, "Cool. Well, when you get it up, stood up and ready to roll, let's get on a podcast and talk about it because there's a lot of people who are thinking about where are ways I can make a difference in my backyard or in the areas that I spend most of my time." I mean, we all support the national groups and they do their thing in DC and they provide a lot of voice and advocacy there. But I'm a big supporter of all the state-based groups. I get a magazine or a newsletter in the mail just about every day, whether it's from a trappers association, a rod and gun club, a state-based species group, whatever. And every one of them are doing good work in some way, shape, or form. So I told Rob that we're going to do this podcast, and as modest as he is and as bashful about asking for people's emails or asking for membership money, I told him that'll be my job. But he'll give us a little bit of history of pronghorn populations in South Dakota. They're nowhere near what they were at one time. They're up a little bit, but what they could be is a much higher number. And I think we see that with a lot of species, not just pronghorn, but mule deer, wild sheep. There's a lot of species out there that they just they're not where they used to be. Uh, and so it's guys like Rob who have decided, yeah, I'm going to do something about it. So, anyhow, I appreciate you all being here. I appreciate Rob taking the time, and I appreciate him doing what he does. There's the old saying that says, if you want something done, ask the busiest person in town. Well, with all the volunteer work he does, Rob must be one of the busiest people in Rapid City, South Dakota. But he's making a difference. And I think he knows it. He'd never take credit for it. He's oh, it's my board members or it's my fellow volunteers. And that's great. We're all kind of that way. But hopefully, when you get done listening to this, if you're interested in South Dakota pronghorn, you'll support them, maybe volunteer for one of their projects. Or maybe it'll give you the idea that you can do this for a cause, a concern, a species, a landscape near where you spend your time. And it's not as hard as you think. It's mostly just saying, I'm going to do this and start checking off the items to get it done. So thanks for being here. I'm going to hit the button here. We got Rob in the green room. So when I hit the button, we'll be live. Well, folks, I told you that anyone who doubted that I am an antelope, which is the term most of you refer to it as, but some of us snobs refer to it as a pronghorn. If you doubt that I'm a pronghorn junkie, you probably just need to stay tuned here because me and my buddy Rob from South Dakota are going to talk about a group that he started in South Dakota. Rob, welcome. Appreciate you taking the time. Appreciate all you do. Anyone involved in South Dakota conservation access hunting, they all know Rob.
Well, that's good and bad. Like, you either know me for two reasons: you either hate me or you love my conservation. Because sometimes when I talk conservation, I might have heard it from a guy who says conservation's never is not pretty. And unfortunately, I've had to put on the boxing gloves and take the muzzle off. And sometimes you just got to
Yeah.
say what you think needs to be said. So,
Yeah. Well, as that Roosevelt guy said, the wildlife and its habitat cannot speak for itself, so we must and we will.
right.
So you're the walking personification of that statement. So,
So
but
I'm gonna real quick. I'm gonna hit you up a little bit of trivia.
come on, Rob. You and I have known each other for a few years now. You don't need to embarrass me in front of my audience with that.
Well, I'm not going to because I think only probably about 5 people would know this. If you know this, like, you are the subject matter expert.
Okay.
In 1959, the
Yeah.
state of Montana relocated 300 pronghorn antelope to what state?
Um, 300 to what state?
Actually, I'll rephrase that: 130 to what state?
130 to
Yep.
what state? Since we're talking about South Dakota, I'm going to go with South Dakota.
Hawaii.
Those ones in Hawaii came from. I knew they had relocated. I thought they came from Wyoming.
Nope.
Okay.
Which is funny because here in my handy dandy little book that is from 1973, that
Uh
came
huh.
from the Wyoming Game and Fish Commission. That's where that data comes from. And in
Wow.
1970, unless you know of some that made it through it, in 1970, that herd is zeroed.
Yeah. Yeah. It was funny. The history of that was there were some, I guess we'll call them farm owners. I don't know if they call them orchards, farms, what they call them there, plantations. Uh, they thought that they would be able to successfully have pronghorn there,
Yeah.
uh, and it didn't last very well. They must have been thinking about the Santa Catalina Islands off the coast of
Yeah.
California that had that great mule deer herd.
Yep.
Maybe that's what they were thinking. But yeah, I don't have any trivia for you. When we put together our talking notes, I didn't know I was going to get put on Trivial Pursuit here, or I would have dreamed one up for you. But if anybody is ever going through the Rapid City, Spearfish, Deadwood area and wants the most amazing cookies on the planet, Rob can put you in touch. So before we really get into the seriousness of pronghorn, Rob, where's your cookie store at?
So we are in downtown Rapid City, kind of like down the main artery of town. It's
Mm,
we've done some rebranding. We've owned it since 2018, but now we call it the Cookie Shop. We made it
okay.
simple. Julie and I just kind of had our own little dream of being self-employed, and I think I might have told you this, but March of this year we opened, ironically, Speed Goat Express Coffee Company.
No way.
So yeah, so we have a walk-in coffee shop in downtown Rapid City, which is in literally a half a block from where our cookie shop is, and
Uh huh.
the every single day the amount of people that come into our coffee shop and say, what's behind the name Speed Goat Express? And our logo is a play off of the Pony Express. It's a Pony Express
Oh,
rider riding a pronghorn. And the people always want to know, they're like, so what's up with this whole speed
huh.
goat thing? And I got to explain it to them. And
Well,
then
that's good.
it's,
That gives you the segue, the marketing opportunity for
yeah,
your group that a lot of people may not have known that there was the Arizona Antelope Foundation. They've been around for a long time.
yeah,
Even before them was the first iteration of the North American Pronghorn Foundation that was based out of Rawlins, Wyoming. But they kind of got tired of it and they just said, like, we're going to close shop. So they were dormant for about 15 years. And that got picked up again in the last year, a group. And now, Rob, being a South Dakotan, vested and fully committed to the cause
yep,
of everything in South Dakota, you and some of your board members have formed, am I going to tell me if I got this right? South Dakota Antelope Foundation.
yep, yep.
All right.
We
You,
had to keep
you,
it. We had to keep it in layman's terms and get away from the purist thing. Uh, I've had some people say like, "Why don't you call it a Pronghorn Foundation?" And I'm like, "Well, until the state changes the
yeah,
name on a hunting tag to pronghorn, we're just going to
yeah.
stay antelope and keep it simple." And some of that advice did come from Glenn Dickens and his crew at the Arizona Antelope Foundation.
Okay, just 1 second. We're gonna pause. I'm gonna go grab the Pronghorn Bible by
Oh Lord!
Yoakum and O'Gara, and we're gonna see what they call it. Hold on.
All right,
All right, you didn't tell any dirty jokes while I was gone,
I
did you?
did not. I did
All
not.
right. You see what the experts of the world call it? Pronghorn ecology and management. It doesn't say antelope. I have argued with this with state agencies forever. I'm like, so you're telling me that if I go shoot an antelope, I've shot something endemic to North America because you said I have an antelope tag. Well, we all know it means pronghorn.
Yeah,
I wonder if someone's ever going to go shoot a pronghorn and say, well, I didn't see where I needed a tag for a pronghorn. It says I needed a tag for an antelope.
it could be
But
interesting depending on the judge that you could get in front of. Like you might have a case for it. You know?
uh, you and I wouldn't, now that we've done this podcast and
Yeah,
announced to the world that we fully understand that there's a misnomer there of using the
yeah,
term. It's kind of like the debate between cow's deer and coos deer. So Elliot Cows was the guy who the deer is named after, the little whitetails down in Mexico,
oh,
Arizona, and New Mexico. Well, a bunch of northerners, we call them coos deer. The purists, the biologists, call them cows deer. And then everyone gets in a big tizzy about what you call them.
yeah.
I'm not going to get too worked up about it. If you want to call it an elk or a wapiti, I guess,
It's buffalo bison. Like it's all you
yeah,
just run into it all.
yeah.
Here you better say Tatanka occasionally. Get it
Okay,
right.
there you go. Yeah, the true native terminology.
Yep.
Uh, but anyhow, you had me out in South Dakota, not this February, the February before.
Yep.
Had me come out, do your South Dakota Bow Hunters Association event. I had a blast. I got to meet you and all of your crew, bunch of great people. And you guys were, I thought I got invited to a pronghorn event rather than an archery event because your lobbyists, all your collaborators, all you guys were talking about were pronghorn, and pronghorn numbers are down, and we're doing this, and we're giving
Yep.
unlimited tags, and blah blah. You guys make any progress on the things you were trying to fix, or is that the kind of the reason for starting your own foundation related to pronghorn?
You know, I wish there was a fix. It's trying to limit tags. In our state right now, you cannot harvest doe antelope, which are the South Dakota Bow Hunters and the South Dakota Antelope Foundation 100% stand behind that. That seems like a good scientific biological approach to helping get a healthier herd under our feet here.
Yeah.
Um, it's I we live and function in a state that some of the money that comes in the state definitely comes in hunting licenses, residents and non-residents. So it's very difficult sometimes to try to reduce the number of, even if it's resident or non-resident. I know right now, on the hunting side of it, it is, you can apply as a non-resident for public land or for private land. You can't
Okay.
apply for both.
Hmm.
And that seems like it's helped out. However, it's still kind of unlimited. It's unlimited on private for
Hmm.
archery,
Wow.
and it's limited on public. And I don't even remember what the number is right now for those numbers, but um, I mean, that helps. However, antelope don't know the difference
Yeah.
between, they don't know the difference between private and public. They're like, oh, hey,
Yeah.
Jim, look at that sign. We can't go, don't go over there.
Yeah.
So it's, we have a lot of outfitters in the state, a lot of very credible well-mannered outfitters that understand a lot of like what it takes. I mean, you're not a good outfitter if you're wiping out your whole herd. You have nothing to draw
Right.
from for your clients. So those guys, like they're pretty in tune with it. I will say, kind of like an unrelated, like I know one outfitter, he told me like a non-resident antelope tag could be $2,000 and he'll still be booked solid,
Yeah.
for the year, because that's people would like to hunt them and stuff. So,
Right.
um, and it goes back to why two things. My wife had been after me about this Antelope Foundation thing forever. She's like, God, just do it, just do it. And I unfortunately had you sitting in my dining room having some breakfast with us. I think you were like, you should just do it.
Yeah.
So, after you left, the talk kind of went on and went on, and uh, coming up with like these new business for us personally, it's kind of getting in the way of it. And then a couple of board members, Jason, who actually took you back to the airport,
Yep.
Jason just called me one day and he goes, stop being such a Sally. Like, do this thing. He goes, I'll be on there too. So Jason Stone, who's on the South Dakota Bow Hunters, is also on the Antelope Foundation. We have Molly Boyam, who's new to the Bow Hunters, but she's also on the Antelope, as well as Tyler Pickett. So he's doing both. So,
Uh,
we kind of go back and forth on it. The one thing I will say is the Antelope Foundation for us, we're not a hunting organization. We're all about putting more pronghorn antelope back on the landscape. And that's where our focus is at. This isn't about creating more opportunity for more hunting tags.
yeah.
We're trying to prevent our future from having to go to a high fenced drive through wildlife park and someone say, look, there's an antelope. And we don't want to ever get to that, because antelope, the way as fragile as they are, there is that component that could happen in certain states. Like the numbers are
Yeah.
just really low.
Yeah.
Arizona is a great example of that.
Right. Yeah. So you gave me some numbers when I was there having breakfast at your house. You and I were talking about pronghorn numbers and their precipitous decline in South Dakota. Where was kind of like the top of the curve, and where are you at now in terms of numbers?
Well, so I mean, one of the notes I have, so South Dakota was in 1970 was at 25,000.
1970, so 50
1970.
years ago. Yeah.
Yep. So don't age me. It's my birth year. Um, but in 2008, we had somewhere around 85 to 90,000 pronghorn in this state.
Wow. So four times what you had in more than four times what you had in
Yep. So then,
1970.
unfortunately, what happens is the bat phone at the state capitol starts ringing because
Mhm.
ranchers and landowners are like, hey, like I'm getting decimated here with whatever their complaint was.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's complaining and sometimes it was actual issues.
Yeah.
But I can't speak for the state or who was running Game and Fish at the time, but we started issuing, like, if you got an archery tag, you got an archery tag for three, a buck, a doe, and doe kid. Like,
Wow.
so yeah, like you could shoot a doe kid, right? Imagine today you're like, hey, I'd like to apply for a mule deer fawn tag,
Yeah.
right? How the times change. So we start in this crazy curve of, like, we start kind of over harvesting, which is only my opinion, but that's
Mhm.
also followed with some really severe winters. And you just watch
Right.
this thing just slowly start tailing off. And right now we're doing every other year as far as counts, or the state is.
Hmm.
So that they did not do an aerial count this spring. Last
Okay.
spring they did. They were a hair under 30,000. And considering what fall recruitment would end up being, they figured they'd probably be at about 34,000.
Okay.
The new objective is 60,000. Not having an objective of 60,000 would be what the state biologists deem would be a healthy herd. And I think I would agree with that as well. I think our board membership 100% agrees with that.
Hmm.
Going back to 80,000 can become a little bit of we're going to get back into landowner complaints, and who knows where
Right.
that'll spiral out of control from there.
Yep.
So, but for us, when you're hovering at 50% of what objective is, that's not good. Like that's
Right.
not healthy. However, we're like, well, almost 10,000 more than you had in 1970. So we're obviously doing good, but um, we're also losing a lot of land acres to farming. Human the
So
We have a lot of antelope here in Rapid City. I shouldn't say a lot. Now I sound like something I'll talk about later. But like we have a few antelope in town here, and
yeah,
like you just keep watching these developments get built into these hillsides, and
yep,
their native prairie. Eventually they're kind of get pushed out, or they're going to get trapped in the middle of it.
yep.
I have a cool video that a guy sent me. He's with the South Dakota Youth Hunting Association, and he lives in the burbs, but he's got a pronghorn antelope in his backyard, like looking over his wooden fence. It's a really nice buck too.
Oh,
So we're expanding as humans. We're getting a
that's
brand new
great.
Air Force base here that's going to add a lot of people,
Yep.
and that's kind of out in that area. Yeah, so I don't know.
So
60,000 is the objective, and South Dakota Antelope Foundation would like to be a big part of achieving that goal. So
when you say farming, a lot of people equate crop farms with, oh, that's always good for wildlife. Pronghorn, not necessarily the case.
right,
If you take native prairie, and all they need, they need cover, they need taller uh, sage and
yep,
other stuff for fawning habitat and escapement. They need they're not a grazer like a cow or an elk. They're more of a
yeah,
browser like a mule deer. So large conversion of huge acreages to row crops, uh, grain, whatever it might be, corn, does not do anything beneficial
right,
for the net positive of pronghorn. And some people from the Midwest are like, oh, we got white-tailed deer living in all of our cornfields or in all of our, sorghum or beans or whatever.
yep,
Yeah, pronghorn aren't that type of animal. They're not that adaptable. They're a very specific habitat specialist.
yep,
And so when all of those things you mentioned, houses, conversion to crops, none of that plays good for the long-term future of pronghorn.
right. Well, if so, on a really dry year, the pronghorn are going to go to, if there's even any flax left in the country, they'll go after that. Or
Yep.
alfalfa is a big thing on super dry years.
Yep.
Um, if we don't have a good, if you don't have enough moisture in your, like the Wyoming big sagebrush, if you don't have that growing up, and we have a really bad winter, that's part of the mortality side of it. Is
Yep.
you don't have any shrubbery above the snow line, so they're not able to get to it, and they can only dig so much. And I mean,
Yep.
imagine like using a shovel to dig in the snow, and then imagine using a pencil to try to, they have little feet. I'm also on a stakeholders group for the state of South Dakota, and it's mainly about wildlife damage for property owners. And I know one of the landowners that's going to be complaining when that stakeholder group starts up, because their winter wheat fields are getting pretty worked over by the antelope in the wintertime. They're
Mm-hmm.
congregating around some river bottom, and they're not really browsing or going off the top. They're pawing it up and trying to get down some of that root system
Hmm.
in there, which is newer to me. Like I don't really understand that whole. I
Yeah.
used to think, well, people will graze their cattle on winter wheat in the winter, and no harm, no foul. But with the antelope, they're more out there, and they're pawing it up and doing
Yeah.
that. So
Huh.
um, yeah, and weather is, how we are here, just like you guys in the eastern part of
Yep.
your state,
Yep.
is we really rely on moisture. Coyotes are like, I could ask anybody in the Department of Game and Fish to give me a number on coyotes. They can't, and I wouldn't
No one.
expect them to.
Right.
Like it's impossible. Like how many house cats are there in the state of South Dakota? It's the same question. So
Yeah. Yeah. But you add all those things together and you take an animal that is somewhat fragile. Uh, it's amazing how hardy they are in good conditions, what they can
yeah,
live through. But they are very fragile from the standpoint of a small disruption to their habitat to where they got to migrate to get to lower snow levels or different snow levels. It doesn't take much for that small animal to succumb to a hard winter if they don't have everything they need.
Yeah.
And they're not like an elk, like you said. An elk, that bull or cow, they'll paw through some pretty deep snow.
Yep.
Uh, Whitetails, they'll figure out, some place to make a go of it. They'll raid haystacks, or they'll do
Yep.
whatever they can do. So pronghorn are not an easy species to, as biologists say, stockpile,
Right.
because as quick as you start building the numbers up, a hard winter comes, and the way humans have manipulated and altered their habitat, they're prone to more dramatic crashes.
Yep.
So I
Well,
appreciate that you and Jason and the rest of you have taken on this task, because it's a pretty big challenge, because so much of it is asking us humans to alter the way in which we do things and give some
yeah.
consideration to wildlife. And the average person is going to be like, well, no, that's why I bought this place.
Yeah.
I want to put a subdivision in here, or I'm going to fence it this way, or I'm going to till it,
Yep.
it's, you know, we have an interesting situation where we're in a country where private property rights are a foundational principle, but a lot of our wildlife is dependent upon how private property gets used and developed.
Right. Well, one of our board members, he's a rancher, name's Brad Bauer, and Brad is probably a couple of decades ago. Brad might have been the guy, if you came and said, "Hey, I'd like to shoot a pronghorn on your property," he'd have said, "No, but you can shoot 20."
Shoot them all.
Yeah, shoot them all. And now Brad, like, I can't speak for certain, but Brad has put in a ton of wildlife friendly fencing
Hmm.
because he's our age, so he's grown out of that phase in his life.
Yeah.
Where now it's like he loves having them on his property, and he knows if he doesn't, he's not being a steward of the land,
Hmm. Wow.
and that means a lot to me. I mean, Brad's just a really good dude, and constantly like working with the state, trying to get this wildlife friendly fencing put in, and take advantage of the programs that they offer. So yeah, I think that there's a growing number of landowners who, it's like anything farming and ranching. What's my neighbor doing? Oh, why are you
Right.
doing that? Well, I don't want to miss out. I don't want to be the one
Yeah.
guy who's not doing that.
Right.
So then pretty soon they start to get involved in it, but then they see the end result and the positivity that comes out of it.
Yeah. So in South Dakota, it sounds like habitat, winters, tag numbers. Do you have any disease issues or other things that hit your populations in South Dakota?
Um, I know that on occasion, it's not a widespread problem, but I know on occasion, like they're finding dead pronghorn just laying here or there, not a bunch, like one just randomly. I know my daughter Claire on the last year that they were doing the mentored youth hunting, which we no longer have that for antelope. Um, it, I thought she'd shot it, her pronghorn. It ran over a hill. We down over the hill. I get there, and here's this pronghorn doe laying there, and I'm like, kind of, how is that thing bloated? You just shot it like a minute ago.
Yeah.
And then I
Yeah.
look over about another 50 yards, and here's the one she shot, and this one was just laying there. So I don't
Yeah.
know. Uh, I have my own theories that I don't like.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you my theory, and I'm going to be
Okay.
wrong because some biologist is going to watch this and go, "That guy's on crack cocaine."
Yeah. There
But
you
here's
go.
my thought. So part of natural or tillage is like deep tillage in the soil, right? And it
Mhm.
works stuff up. Well, when we get really dry spells, and those great big cracks in the soil is almost a form of tillage, of aeration of the soil. But then water gets down, is able to go down further in the soil profile than what it ever did before. Hence, it might get to some things that got leached out of the upper soil that wasn't really healthy for wildlife.
Mm.
And sometimes I feel like that is an uptake in some of the plants that they're eating, and it could become toxic if they eat too much of it. I have read a couple of studies. There's one weed out there that specifically, and I can't remember the name of it. I should have researched it more before I came on, but like I could definitely see that, especially when we go through these high heavy drought periods.
Mhm.
It's not widespread. It's not really anthrax. It's just something that just affects different wildlife in different ways.
Hmm.
But um, we haven't seen a lot of that. The chronic wasting disease, ADHD,
Yeah.
any of those things, we just don't. And our game and fish department is amazing at when a landowner calls and says, "I've got this." They send somebody up there right away. Where we got to send it to is all the way to the east side of the state, to South Dakota State University, which is way up in Brookings.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, like there's a lot of time and money that goes into that of looking at these things. And usually, when they get them, they're unable to find the actual root cause of the death.
Hmm. So in Montana, we've had some cases of EHD, blue tongue, some call it.
Yep.
I'm looking at the Pronghorn Bible here, uh, Pronghorn Ecology and Management. There is a chapter on diseases,
Yeah.
diseases and parasites, uh, and it's a pretty thin chapter compared to everything else. Uh, so I'm assuming it didn't deserve a huge amount of coverage.
Right.
Uh,
100%.
yeah, it's only this book is 600 pages or something. You get to diseases and it's 30 pages, 35 pages. You get to predation. Holy smokes. Predation is pretty large. And then it's mortality factors, which is really a large chapter.
Yep.
Uh, because they're not a cervid, at least for the time being, chronic wasting disease is not leaped across from cervids to other uh, species that
Yep.
we know of. So it's not an issue there. I'd say in Montana and Wyoming, they talk heavily. But if you talk to any of the biologists, they're going to say it's habitat and weather uh, are our biggest issues. Habitat meaning not just the quality of the habitat of a drought cycle or a high moisture cycle, but
Yep.
also interference with how they can use that habitat. We've all read the studies from the Wyoming Migration Initiative about how pronghorn evolved as a migratory species, and we may really not notice it because we may be like, "No, they just moved 12 miles." Well, if they can't move those 12 miles, but 10 miles over there is it blows clear, it gets less snow. That's probably where they're wintering. And if they can't get there and they get stacked up against fences, they're
Yep.
going to starve.
Yep.
And so that all of that's a component of the habitat side of it. And it's it, uh, it's probably for me, it's the one I focus on the most. A lot of people want to say predation, predation, predation. Well, there's a ton of studies out there about predation with deer, predation, mostly coyotes with deer, coyotes with pronghorn. And the amount of effort you have to put towards predation, coyote control
Yeah.
is intense. The timing of it has to be well timed relative to when the fawning happens, which
May
I saw.
1st.
Yeah, I saw twin fawns when I was out walleye fishing last weekend on our way back. It was really cool to see two little fawns and one doe standing there. I'm thinking, I wonder if I need to stand guard here and make sure no coyotes get here until these little guys are big enough to run away.
Yeah.
Uh, so the timing of when you have to apply heavy predation pressure or predator pressure against predators, none of that's simple and easy, and nothing solves the consequences of predation, which is a natural part of every population cycle. Nothing helps that more than high quality habitat.
Right.
Every study you read, every person you talk to, that lower quality habitat predation is way more amplified.
Right.
Higher quality habitat, the effects of predation are far that it's suppressed.
Right.
So if that's the case, and we know that the cost of predation is a continual ongoing thing or managing predators, I always end up leaning over here towards habitat.
Right.
And I know some people are going to send us emails and say, Newberg, you don't know what you're talking about. I saw 12 coyotes out in the field last night. I get that. Shoot some of them.
Well, so if you look at there's a few studies. I can't remember if Montana State did one of them, and it's been a while. But they the study stated that coyotes are responsible for 70% of the fawn mortality.
Right.
But now, where we go into with what you're saying is, and you're 100% right. We're bird hunters, right? Like you've hunted birds, I've hunted birds upland.
Yep.
If I'm out in the middle of barren nowhere and I see a tuft of grass,
Yeah. That's where I'm
and
going.
we're going to walk over there, and there might be some sharpies in there. There might be there's going to be grouse or pheasant in there.
Yep.
If you're a coyote who's actually a 4 times the hunter that you and I ever will be,
Yep.
he already knows it as well. And it's not only coyotes, it's raptors.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to take a drone and probably fly it around, and if you have low habitat and that doe doesn't have a place to drop those fawns, that's easy pickings for them as well. It's just if someone can prove me wrong, an antelope doesn't live in a 1 square mile and it just circles around there for its lifespan, right? Montana State collared a doe up in Harding County, which is in South Dakota,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the farthest northwest county in the state of South Dakota. Actually, it's probably the most prime antelope county that we have. Don't apply there. So, but that doe eventually ended up in a year's time down in Wall, South Dakota, which is hundreds of miles
right
from where it's at. And what I would love to do, Randy, is I would love to get that data from the gal who did that study. And I know like Our Game and Fish has it, but I'm like, I really kind of want to deal with someone who was studying this data all the time. And I'd like, if you could have the money to take a drone and fly that entire route and see how that pronghorn zigzag, she went back and forth around woven wire fences and found openings, and then also tie that with the weather patterns per each day as that route was being taken, would be so much information that would be usable to actually convince people finally that like overgrazing or all this woven wire has so much implication, because it's even worse for an antelope when it ends up in a new area, because it doesn't know where everything is at. It's like, oh, I didn't know there was woven wire there. I guess that's where we're going to go and pile up this winter and be dead. Or I'm getting chased by a coyote or a hunter and I can't get out. And I'm just stuck in here. I'm like in a pen. So that's like some of that aspect. Cause I do agree. When you take the coyotes, like you said, the timing, you could shoot a pair of coyotes, a male and a female, and like, well, took care of them and probably whatever's back of the den, which, however, whatever. The thing is a coyote with no pups will come over and take over that den and raise those pups.
Yeah.
So they're so smart that I don't ever think not in my lifetime, unless we went back to the unpopular, and I understand why, but poisoning coyotes. That's really when the coyote population definitely took off. Low fur prices, they don't help us out. So that's where our organization, North American Pronghorn Foundation, Arizona Antelope Foundation, that's where we all kind of get tied back into this. Got to go after habitat, because I'm not saying that's low hanging fruit, but it's something that we can get involved in.
Yeah. And it's in the long run will provide the best returns for pronghorn. And I want to make sure that nobody thinks that Rob was advocating that we go back to poisoning coyotes. Okay. That's not what he was saying. He was using it as a point of reference as to when coyote numbers were at their all-time low in this country. Did I make a clear enough disclaimer on that, Rob?
Yeah, I mean, I'm like, I know Aunt Betsy should have kept her dog at home and not let it go run wild across the countryside, but no, and it is hard because a lot of raptors, bobcats, a lot of critters you did not want to intentionally get, they fell victim to that, and so I understand why we got away from that practice, but it is kind of where that launching pad started at.
Right. So then we get into this really. And this is me trying to paraphrase or filter, whatever term you want to call it, all these studies. So there are studies about how habitat predation and mortality from habitat are all combined in how there's some mix there. And the better the quality of your herd age class, the greater the likelihood that the conception dates are going to be in a narrow window of 10 days to 2 weeks.
Right.
So then you take this gestation period. That means you're probably going to have a very narrow window of, what do they call it? Parpuration? Birthing. Let's call it that.
Yeah.
Fawns being born.
Fawning.
Yeah. And so you own a coyote can only eat so many fawns in 10 days.
Yeah.
Whereas if you string that out for 30 days, because you really don't have a good age class, so the conception dates are spread out equally over 30 days. Now you have coyotes picking off these fawns for 30 days instead of 10 days. And so it triples the amount of fawn predation just because of the quality of your herd, for lack of a better term of
Yeah.
putting it there. And so there's all these things. And then if you have really good fawning habitat, which is going to be a little bit higher cover, going to have fewer fences, going to all kinds of things. The fawn or the doe doesn't have to go as far to get food and come back and lactate. There's all these things that highest quality habitat results in less predation of fawns also. So
Yep.
all these things keep coming back to this one thing called habitat. And you spoke to one of them right there, and that's woven fence. Anyone who doesn't know what Rob was referring to when they say woven fence, those of us who live out west, we say, oh, that's a woven fence, or it's a lot of people call them sheep fences, because on the bottom two strands from, say, I don't know, 30 inches down, it's, what is it, a 4x4 or 6x6 inch?
It's both. It can be
Yeah,
both.
yeah, mesh. And so a pronghorn can't fit through a 4x4 or 6x6 inch hole. So they don't, they didn't evolve jumping over fences. Well, they didn't evolve with fences, but they're not jumpers. They prefer to crawl under. And if ever you see a low spot along a fence line and a big path underneath it, that's probably where the pronghorn are crossing, and they cross single file. So better habitat, speaking to the one board member you have who's improving their fences, you take the bottom two wires or the bottom half of the fence, and you make sure that it is not woven fence.
Right.
Or sheep fence, whatever you want to call it. And when you replace it, maybe you can put the middle wire, the second from the bottom, as barbed. But if you can make that bottom wire a smooth wire and just move it up 1 or 2 extra inches.
18 inches off the ground.
Right.
Yep.
But some of them are down like 12, 14 inches.
Oh yeah.
And if you can move it up a little bit, 18 inches is 18 to 20 is recommended. You do marvelous things for the cause of pronghorn and their ability to escape predation.
Yep. Yeah, and that's so the state of South Dakota has done a remarkable job. I don't get into I don't care about all the politics or where the money comes from. It's kind of irrelevant. But there are some programs right out there right now that a lot of ranchers, especially in South Dakota, are taking advantage of. The state will reimburse you if you remove 5-strand or woven wire and replace it with what you just talked about, 3 strands of barbed wire, and that bottom strand has to be smooth wire. If you replace with that, it's somewhere between 70 and 90 cents a foot. Well, you can pencil it out if you take it out yourself,
right,
and put it back in yourself. But if for us, what we're doing is we're offering for landowners, we'll go out and we'll remove it. Yeah. That way they can replace it, whether they have a fencing crew or they do it themselves. They can pencil the project out, and it makes it work. We've kind of become a tool for Game and Fish as a selling point of saying, like, hey, I know you're on the fence. Maybe you don't want to do this. Maybe it's not a good idea. And maybe get a hold of these guys and see what you can work out with them. And they'll come out and they'll remove this fencing for you.
Yeah.
And so sure, there are people that could afford to have someone remove it. I mean, pay them and then replace it. Absolutely. And maybe they would take advantage of us offering to come out and do those services. Um, we don't care. Woven wire out is a good thing. 5-strand wire out is a good thing. The less of that that's out there, any place where you look, I can't say the same about Wyoming or Montana, but I can say in South Dakota, where you see a lot of the woven wire, it's probably a lot less sagebrush in that pasture.
Mm-hmm.
That's just not even like there's just not a lot of good food source there because it was overgrazed by sheep production at
Yep.
one point. So we're just making an incredible opportunity here for again pronghorn to move from point A to point B, escape predation. I have a picture that I don't know if I ever sent it to you. It was a pronghorn fawn that I found last fall. That's a half mile from where we just did a fencing project 2 weekends ago. That that pronghorn was it was the fawn. It was dead. It was hung up in the. It had tried to get through one of the squares of the woven wire, got hung up, and then there was a doe about 100 yards out with another fawn. I'm sure it was. I'm sure she'd had twins, and one of them got hung up in there. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just not for them. I mean, it's
Right.
for any wildlife, young mule deer, those yearling mule deer. They're trying to jump over a 5-strand barbed wire, it's a lot.
Yeah.
I have personally uh, seen an pronghorn that had been shot, had went under barbed wire fence, and it had this huge gouge all the way down the
Yeah.
center of its back. So when it's hot, you always see a big tuft of hair fly out because of the hollow hair when they go through that fence. But when it's hot out and there's flies, the risk of infection are pretty high. And
Mm-hmm.
especially if you're going into breeding season and you're going to be carrying a fawn, that's not a healthy way to go. So,
Yep.
um, and I even at this point, and you'll probably get an email on this. I don't know what kind of livestock people are raising nowadays that you got to have 5-strand. I mean, are you raising rodeo bulls? I don't longhorns. I don't know what's going on, but it's like our board member with all the woven or with the smooth wire that he's been installing, and he's just like, he goes, ain't nothing getting out. Like it's just like
Yeah.
it was before. Like cattle respect it, they understand. Um, I don't know. It seems there's a lot of conversation going on as far as the like the invisible fencing for dogs
Yep.
of going
Yeah.
to that with livestock. We'll
Mm-hmm.
see how that goes. I don't know. Like your neighbors would have to have it too.
Right. No, I've heard a lot about that type of fencing, and it'll be interesting to see. They're doing a lot of experiments with it here in Montana, trying to just see how well it works,
Yeah.
especially for pasture rotations, rotating pastures and moving animals quicker, getting them to graze intensively and then get them to move off.
Yep.
And it'll be interesting to see how all of that works. When you're talking about when you say we'll go do this, your group, you guys are because we've 3 summers in a row we've went down to a place in southwest Montana, me and the crew, and we've removed exactly what you were saying. We're rolling up fence, pulling those off, and then they have a contractor. Actually, I think they get some cost share even on the installation, but
Yeah.
at least we do the removal for free,
Yeah.
volunteer labor. Is there a way that people could get a hold of you or your group and say, hey, that sounds like fun. I want to go do some of that?
Well, I think the biggest thing is just to go to our website, South Dakota Antelope Foundation. You can sign up to volunteer. You can sign up for membership, either one. Um, I'll tell you this last project we had, and this is the challenge in all of this. And first, I'm going to say is kudos to you, someone having a platform that's actually out with your crew doing that type of stuff. You should have made a really cool video and put it
We
out
did.
there.
We did. And
Did
nobody
you?
watched it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because you know why I know it? Because it's not sexy.
exactly. If we do conservation stuff, it gets 10,000 views. If I shoot a big fat cow elk or I say I miss a bull elk, it gets 150,000 views in a day. That's just the hunting audience.
Well,
But
we had another nonprofit, a national organization, put out an email that we had this fencing project. We knew I went up and surveyed it, but I didn't measure it out. I knew it was between 2.5 and 3 miles, woven wire,
mhm.
kind of some rough country, not bad though. And they sent out an email. I reached out to Randy Routier with the North American Pronghorn Foundation, um, a guy from Game and Fisher who has a gazillion contacts. South Dakota Bowhunters has its entire membership plus a long list of volunteers, and I'm going to say probably 700 emails went out in total.
Mhm.
And on the first day, a guy volunteered from South Dakota Game and Fish. He's actually does a lot of their educational stuff. He helped us from 7 till 10. When I say us, I mean myself and another board member, two 55-year-old guys. And we got out there we pulled 1.25 miles of woven wire fence out, just the two and a half of us.
Yeah.
And then the next day, a few more guys, like more people showed up. And
Mhm.
that is the biggest struggle that we face is
Mhm.
um, it's definitely kind of like one of my, remember when we said like, you either hate me or you love me. It does turn into the, like a lot of people, like I can really turn them off because I get so frustrated in where we're at, Randy, in like, there are so many people that have the power. And I'm very thankful that I'm able to be here right now, this moment on your platform, because I know that you've dedicated, whether you get a bunch of likes or not, you've dedicated a percentage of your platform, which is a damn big number, to
Mhm.
conservation and access and wildlife. And that means the world to me. But I also look out there and I see how many other people have platforms and they don't even touch this. The
Yeah.
only time they touch it is when Dan Gates reels start getting some traction on them, and Dan's an amazing guy and has a great message. And
Mhm.
somebody will say like, "Hey, did you see that hashtag with that algorithm? We better at least say something one time," and then it's over with,
Right.
because we keep thinking that game and fish and wildlife all on its own is going to just rebound and it's just going to get better, and it's not the case.
Right.
And it's really frustrating. I can get really emotional about it. I mean, like I like
Me too.
having 8 guys show up and you do a bunch of fencing and you accomplish the project and you're like, you know how much fence we could have taken out with 30 guys,
Right.
or not even guys and gals, 60 guys. I started doing these projects with South Dakota Bowners Association. I was like, you know what, man, I'm tired of lobbying. Like,
Mhm.
it's a necessity. It is. But we got to start doing something for the wildlife, because if we
Right.
just if all we're focused on is getting to shoot more stuff, that's not how this is going to work.
Right.
If we were gardeners, we'd all starve to death. We literally
Yeah.
would. Like,
Right.
we're really good at plucking out of the garden, but we don't know how to put it back in. We think someone
Yeah.
else is going to come and do it for us, and
Yeah.
they won't. And I'm going to
No.
quote another guy that just recently said something on another podcast where he just said, like, in my lifetime, Randy, I don't think I've seen hunting get better. I mean, as
Mhm.
far as access is better, populations are better. It always feels like there's just always this slowly chipping away at it, and
Mhm.
numbers just start decreasing as far as wildlife, our access acres start chipping away, just the whole opportunity thing. And we're kind of we're kind of our own selves to blame for it.
Yep.
Like, we really are. That whole
We
the
are.
whole the whole mountain lion thing, like, everybody wakes up one day and they're like, "Oh my god, what's going on? Like, how'd this happen?" And I'm like, "Well, this was going on while you were sleeping, and only
Yeah.
a select few people knew." So it's always like we're a football team. Hunters, we're the football team that's sitting on the 1 yard line in our own end zone, and the other team always gets to start on the 1 yard line.
Yeah.
And like, how did we get here? And we're like, well, we did this to ourselves. And
Yeah.
I mean, like, trust me, I can go on for a long time about it, but it's so hard to get people to want to come out and volunteer for this stuff until we learn that conservation is the real flex. You can shoot 80-pound limbs, you can shoot 10,000 yards, you can do all of that stuff, but the real flex is conservation.
Yeah.
And you said it, like, it's not sexy, it's not pretty, it doesn't get likes. I don't know what we got to do to change that until we just start finally guilting people. And who wants to,
Yeah. You
like
don't.
it, that's it's not fun, right? Like,
No.
nobody wants to guilt them.
Right. I want volunteers, not captives.
Right?
Yeah.
You've been voluntold you're going to show up for this.
Yeah.
But
No,
th-
you're on a very. I'm glad you brought it up, Rob, because you're on a very important topic that's near and dear to me. Uh, And I understand that at my age and my situation, financially and family wise and work wise, I'm in a different position. Uh, but I do know that even when I was building a CPA firm, had a little one at home, I was the sole breadwinner. I still felt I had to be involved.
Yeah.
And I know our time is our most scarce resource. But if we really love hunting, if we really love these wild things, which I believe both those statements are true, we can't expect someone else to do this hard work for us. And I always say conservation has three aspects. It's always difficult, it's work. It's always uncomfortable. Someone's going to be mad at you because of the position you take on behalf of wildlife and habitat. Might be a coworker, might be a family member, might might be a neighbor, who knows. They just got to accept someone's going to be mad. And it's always inconvenient. I can look at my calendar and find a million reasons on that calendar why I shouldn't go to this meeting tomorrow night here in Bozeman that is the scoping process for the season setting. Well, my feeling is if I am too busy that I can't go to a 2 hour meeting, I probably ought not to be complaining about the decisions made by the people who showed up at that meeting.
Yep.
Uh, and earlier you mentioned that it's not practical to think that Game and Fish is going to do this for us. An unnamed Game and Fish person, very senior, just before they retired, I asked them what what they'd seen in their career, and they said, "You know, when I first started, it was about managing wildlife. By the time I retired, it was about managing people and elected officials."
Yeah.
So uh, I still think about that statement, and what it tells me is there's a reason why we've seen the emergence of conservation wildlife specific groups like South Dakota Antelope Foundation, North American Pronghorn Foundation, Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, because people realize agencies, they don't have the funding, and if they don't have the funding, they don't have the staffing to go out and do some of these big projects.
Right.
Their elected officials have said you're not going to be involved in much of the policy part of it. We're going to set the policy and you're going to implement it. So their ability to do things that are going to make big differences on the landscape gets less and less every decade, every year. So that comes to us. Are we going to do it? Or are we going to just wish that someone would show up and do it for us? And I, I try to do it by example.
Yeah.
I think it's very important for me to be at events and to be fundraising, to be, out getting my hands dirty, doing whatever I can. Uh, because I've always felt if you're going to lead, you got to lead. It helps if you're leading from the front, not from the
Yeah.
rear. And I don't, I, I sometimes wonder, have we had as much success? We've had some successes in doing that, but I'll tell you, just like you expressed here, it's one of my biggest frustrations is no matter how hard we try to get people involved, it's the rare person. I mean, some do, and if you're a volunteer for wildlife and conservation, you
Yeah.
got 100% my thanks, my gratitude, my appreciation, my respect. Uh, and some do. So I'm not trying to lump all hunters into that category because
Right.
there's special ones who see the bigger picture also. But I do share your frustration when it doesn't work out. You say you sent 700 emails. Yeah, if we got a response rate of 0.5%, we'd be pretty excited.
Well, I look at Game and Fish and I'm like, I can't fault Game and Fish for not taking us very seriously. Because if you've ever sat and listened to certain things at a commission meeting, and
Yeah.
everybody's voice and input is important, right?
Hmm.
But man, if you don't have a solution, it says bitching.
Right.
And so
Yep.
people just go up there and do this bitch. And if I worked for the state, eventually I would not take hunters seriously.
Hmm.
I'd be like, here's just the group of they just want to take, and we're tasked with trying to figure all this out and put it all back together. It's that's difficult. And I have changed as I've grown in age where like I sympathize to it because I will listen to people sometimes talk.
Mhm.
Now, you did say, I think more and more, especially because almost all of we see so much on social media, right?
Mhm.
And you see, like what you talked about, like now you're older, you have the more financial means, you have those things. But when you were 21 years old, did you own, like, I know the pricing has changed, right? Did you
Right.
own like almost a $2,000 bow? Were you wearing a
Nope.
$400 pair of Crispies? Like,
Nope.
I have a picture that I will find you for proof of me with my first rifle pronghorn wearing a pair of Converse.
Hey, now you're stealing that from me.
That's the honest to God truth. I told Julie, I'm like,
No.
I had a skull like a painter's cap on and a Nike hoodie and my
Yeah.
Savage 250 3000 that I'd shot my first pronghorn with. And I'm like, times have changed where now, and I
You
seriously,
see that? That is my first pronghorn in Montana with my little 2 year old son. And if you look on my right leg, there's the blue chevron with the
yep,
Larry Bird Magic Johnson All Star, Converse All Stars. Though I elk hunted in those. So to your point, that rifle there that you saw,
yep,
I bought it at a garage sale and it shot lights out. It was a 222
yeah,
223. Which one? 22, 2. Yeah, I should remember. Anyhow, uh, but it was my fur rifle. It
yeah.
paid for itself many times over.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, all this stuff you're talking
Well,
about.
I think
I
it's
had a
Randy. It's
T-shirt. I had a junked out truck. I didn't know if I was even going
yeah,
to make it to the trailhead.
yeah, right. And now it's like you don't want to go out unless you got matching camo. So, and I won't go down that road, but I'm like, I feel like now though, it's not so much that people don't have time, it's prioritizing your time.
Right.
If someone were to tell me, like, man, I just don't have time, and I'd be like, you've been to two TAC events, you went shed hunting for a week, you went morel hunting for a week.
Yeah.
I think it's just like, I'm not God. I'm not going to tell people, like, hey, you should stop having fun. But I'm going to go back to, like, I sent Dustin an email at Mountain Tough, and I was
Uh
like,
oh.
I'm like, we gotta turn fence removal into a flex. Like, we gotta make something happen with this. But it's about prioritizing, because younger people today, if we can't get them on board with this, if we can't get them on board with this, and we got to wait till they're in their 50s, this will
Yeah.
not exist. This will
Right.
not be a thing. Um,
No.
to get
It,
them to come outside and go do these things with us. I get it. You can go out and do these projects with us. You can have somebody take a picture of you. You can put it on your social media, and it'll only get, like, instead of getting 100 likes, it's going to get 10 likes.
all right.
So what?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if we're going to live our whole life in that
Yeah.
specter, then we're going to get what we put into it.
Yeah. If people came up here and saw our whiteboard and our strategy plan of how much of our content is required to be conservation, access, public land, and advocacy, they'd, they'd be like, "You're a fool, man." No wonder your platforms are only the size they are. But that's what
Hopefully
we're
some
here to do. So,
hopefully somebody sends this. I'm going to say this, and hopefully somebody sends it to him. Somebody has a contact with him. If Cameron Haynes said he was going to show up at a fencing project, or Steve Ranella was going to show up at a fencing project, I'm going to guarantee you I'd have to shut down the highway to get them to, like, keep it under control. I'd be like, no, we're not pulling out that 2 miles. No, like, you guys went too far. That's the power that some people have, and I don't think they realize to,
yeah.
like, put aside those things where, I know that Casey Butler over at Hush, like those guys, him and BMAC and crew,
Mhm.
they've done that sagebrush reintroduction thing, and
Yeah.
people buy tickets to go and do that stuff with them. And
Mhm.
I support that. I'm okay with that. If that's what you got to do to get people to show up,
Mhm.
so be it. But
Right.
that's a great way of using your platform, is to do stuff like that.
Yeah. Or you could use your platform to have guys like Rob be on
Yeah.
there and talk about what he's doing, what his passion is, and what drives him. So, being at your house, talking to your wife, Julie, is that
Yep.
her name? Yeah.
Yep.
Uh, in listening to stories, it was almost as if I was sitting in my own living room of a spouse who's like, my wife would say, well, that's just who he is. That's what he does. I gave up on anything different than that a long time ago. And so I know some of us are blessed with having spouses, whether
Yep.
it's the husband or the wife, who just says, this is what drives him or her. This
Yeah.
they get a big smile out of doing a fence pull or doing whatever. So yeah, I accept it. And so I try to put myself in the shoes of what if I had it, if I was in a relationship where it wasn't in position, based on how everyone prioritized everything. And it's hard for me to do that because this is a blessing of life. My
Yeah.
wife has been supportive of me going to any meeting, going to do a fundraiser, whatever it is. Uh, and that is a blessing. It does
Yep.
allow me to do some things. And when I filled my calendar to come, did I tell you this story? You kept hounding me for a couple of years, and finally, when I came out and did your event last year, when I penciled that in the year before, Kim says, "Why are you so busy doing all this volunteer stuff? Are you that good at it?" I said, "No, I'm free."
Yeah.
And she said, "Well, if you want me to, I can fix that for you."
I won't tell you though. Everybody was shaking their head after you left. Everybody's like, "How are we going to follow up with this? Like, have we set her? Like, I'm not trying to make your head swell. I'm just literally saying, like, everybody's like, because one of like we have a new board member, Stanley Lewandowski, who's on our South Dakota Bowhunters board.
Mhm.
He's a member because of that. You were there, like
Oh, really?
he kept hounding me about like when you got these projects going on, when you got this project, when's the next project, and
Cool.
like it doesn't matter about age, Randy. I think like when we can literally sit in a room and you can do like what you're like the two presentations you did there, you can inspire young people to want to get in this thing.
Yeah.
Now, back to my wife. So I remember like she was like, "Yeah, you got to do this. You got to start this organization where this is going to happen." And I'm like, "Okay." I go, "Well, we're going to need a website." So I start pricing out websites, and she's like, "I'll build it for you."
Oh, wow.
So she spends a week building this website, which I'm pretty proud of. Like it's pretty
Uh-huh.
basic, but it's pretty cool. And then she's sitting there and I'm starting to put this board together and I'm like, "Hey, I lied to her. I go, a couple of the other guys nominated that you become the secretary of the organization." Said that was just me saying, like, I need you to be the secretary of the organization. So she's on there for now, but Julie's the first one. Like she gets dirty at the fencing projects last year, and the only reason she goes, it's not to remove the fence. I mean, she gets it because she hunts
Yeah.
just as much as I do. She goes because she likes making food for people, so she'll drop the tailgate. And that last project I think we had at the Bowhunters a year ago, we had like 30 people there, and she is just slamming sandwiches together, making sure everybody's got their food and drinks and stuff. So she just loves seeing people come together for a good cause. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm like you. I'm very blessed. I know your wife likes to walleye fish.
Yep.
You
We
should
just
you
got
should
back.
you should get her like just to start a foundation for zebra mussel removal. It should be all over the top of that. Be near and
She
dear to her
would.
heart.
She would be on that like a rat on a Cheeto, man. But yeah, so you get into all these things. There's a lot of stuff that causes or makes some hurdles for people in their ability or their interest. Sometimes it's their ability to prioritize over other things, and I
Yep.
get that. I guess my point is when I see how much time some people spend on social media or other platforms, if they just took 10% of that time,
Yep.
wrote an email, attended a meeting, made a small donation, oh man, we'd be so far out in front. I,
Uh,
oh,
we're, I know the Boners Association. I can't say who it is yet. I'll tell you when I'm not on here. But like we're trying to line up a project for that Friday. When you came to Deadwood,
Yeah.
um, the weather was beautiful the day you got there. The day you left, it wasn't so
Ooh,
hot.
bad. No.
But if we can get this guy to, we're going to try to set up a project that he'll be at, where
Mhm.
people can actually we can all be working on a project and doing things and actually seeing someone that they look up to or emulate or whatever out doing this type of stuff. If that's the inspiration that it takes, that's what we're going to try to line up with that. So,
Yeah.
th- uh, so 2 years ago for the Bowhunters Association, which I'm here representing the Antelope Foundation, but I'm still on that board as well. We had one of our participants who came for the fencing removal. He brought a non-hunter with him, and this
Yeah.
was kind of the humbling moment. Not really humbling, but the eye opener, I should say.
Right.
We get all done and we're doing the whole sandwich thing, and I go to talk to him. He's like, "Man, how many of these do you guys do a year?" And I'm like, "This is the first one we've ever done." He's like, "What?" He goes, "I thought you guys as hunters, I thought you guys did this kind of stuff all the time." And I'm like, well, no, we don't.
Right.
No, we're like, and so the Antelope Foundation, I look at there's three groups. There's non-hunters, there's hunters, and there's anti-hunters.
Right. Yep.
And non-hunters will show up for projects.
Mhm.
Non-hunters, um, like I said, they don't want to have to drive through a park someday to see a buffalo. They want to
Mhm.
literally see them out on the landscape and doing that stuff. So that's why we're not a hunting organization. We're a conservation organization. Um, we have a lot of people that follow us, a lot of people that interact with us that have no interest in hunting, but they don't care that people hunt.
Right.
And again, we're not doing this so that we can have more tags for people or more opportunity to have tags. If that comes along with it, that's fine, as long as we can have the balance. And I didn't know if you would ask me at some point, which you haven't, but I'll do it anyway.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, well, I wonder if Randy's going to ask me why we just didn't start a chapter underneath the North American Pronghorn Foundation. And
Mhm.
here's where I'm thankful for the North American Pronghorn Foundation is they're going to have a U.S. footprint of
Mhm.
they can have people in states that do not have pronghorn to get those people can get educated and somehow can get involved, whether it's through funding or other things. Part of the primary reason, like when Jason Stone and I and a couple of the other board members were really talking about this, what was important for us was that we can really facilitate micromanaging our antelope population and having that really day-to-day interaction with game and fish if we need to, as
Mhm.
well as all of our board members. We weren't trying to say, hey, we don't want any East River, South Dakota people. You driven across the state, you hit that river,
Yep.
there's not very many pronghorn on the other side of it. However, there used to be pronghorn in Tracy, Minnesota,
Yep.
but we just wanted people that lived in pronghorn country that were there all the time, watching and observing and saying, hey, this is what I'm seeing, and it was easier for us to do, as well as I've been a member of Backcountry Hunters and Anglers in the past. Great organization. I just knew that anytime we do a fundraiser or whatever money we had that was coming in, I just didn't want it to go pay a light bill someplace.
Mhm.
I wanted it literally, as long as I'm at the helm for as long as my term is, I just didn't want anybody getting paid. And I'm not saying that's going on with any other organizations. I just knew I'm like, every dollar I want to be accountable for that it's going 100% right back into pronghorn restoration and rebuilding their population. So we look forward to partnering and trying to do some things with North American Pronghorn Foundation. But it would have just been, hey, like we could just have a chapter. I don't know what those goals are. I should probably reach out to Brock or ask Randy about it. But I just knew that it was like, hey, I have all my key people that I deal with at Game Fish and Parks that I can send an email to. I have my people at SDSU that I can send an email to. I have all the links that I want to, and I never. It's just easier for us to manage what we're trying to do here.
Yeah. Well, I have had people on this podcast. I, if I had a category, a playlist of conservation discussions or discussions with conservation volunteers, it'd probably be the largest playlist for this podcast. And in that playlist, I've had guests who have founded a little rod and gun club in their town. Because the reason I want to do that is I don't want people to think you need to end up with Ducks Unlimited
Yeah.
as your end result of your effort. Some people, just three or four folks get together and say, "This is how I want to do it," and sometimes it's not even as formal as forming a nonprofit. They just form a club, and that's what they do. But every bit of it is making a difference for
Yeah.
wild places and wild things. And that's why I'm trying to think if I've ever turned down anyone who wanted to be on this podcast who was like you, a grassroots, a volunteer,
Yep.
shoulder to the wheel kind of person. And I don't think I've ever turned that down. We've always found time for them. And some people might say, well, that doesn't, some of the listeners might think, well, why does that relate to me, Newberg? Why are you doing a podcast about South Dakota and pronghorn? Why not a national species like, our national group with
Yeah.
a big species like white-tailed deer? Well, because they all matter. And the bigger groups, I'm a member of them all, probably a life member of all of them. They already have their awareness out there.
Yeah.
But you and other smaller groups, awareness is a big part of it. And just knowing that there are other people out there doing it is helpful. It'll hopefully put you in touch, or some people in touch with you who
Yep.
share those same concerns. But hopefully it also provides example. If somebody says, in my state it's not pronghorn I'm worried about, I'm worried about, pick whatever it is that you
Yeah.
want, prairie chickens, or whatever it might be. Well, do something about it. And I don't mean that as like shut up and do something about it. I mean that in like, if you do something about it, you're going to be fulfilled. You're going to see progress, and you're going to feel better about. Back to your comment earlier, my grandma had where you said if you just show up and complain, you're just bitching. Uh, my grandma always said, "Complaints without a solution is sniveling," uh, and I think one of the things that has got hunters to where we are in the conservation space is there's been an awful lot of people who put their shoulder to the wheel and said, you know what, this is a solution, I'm going to work towards it.
Yeah.
And I don't care what part of society you're in, there's always going to be some people who just are Debbie Downers, like, oh, why we even bother? They're kind of this defeatist,
Yep.
you know. Marcus Twain says pessimists are seldom disappointed because they expect the worst and they get the
Yep.
worst. Uh, Hunters have not really been that way. Hunters have been like Rob Mahaffey of the world. You guys do these things. I think you're an example that I want the listeners to hear about, to know about, and to think about. Well, Rob is self-employed. Him and his wife run this business, but his passion for the future of hunting drives him to go do these things. And it's not just the future of hunting; it's the future of wildlife
Right.
itself. Uh, and hopefully, people hear that and take that example and do something similar. Or for sure, and this is where you're not getting off, Rob, without me making the sales pitch. Okay, here's the one thing that every board member of small beginning nonprofits is terrible at is making the ask.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm completely shameless about making the ask when it comes to conservation. If you invite me to your event to be your MC, my goal is to make sure nobody leaves there with $1 in their pocket.
Right.
So, the ask, are you looking for members or are you looking for volunteers? All the above.
All of the above. I mean, the membership, and shame on me for not remembering our membership fees because I'm thinking of too many things. But it's like all those dollars go towards it's more fence post jacks, it's more fencing pliers. I can't expect 40 people to show up and all own a pair of fencing pliers.
Yeah.
At some point in time, it'll pay for an enclosed trailer so that we can have all that equipment in there, so it's not rolling around in 10 people's pickups. Having like a little supply, leather gloves, it's all that stuff, and then the offset for the meals.
Yeah.
again, Glenn Dickens in Arizona, like that guy, like he really helped me out. I mean, I look at how much money those guys raise and put back into Arizona Game and Fish.
Yep.
It's a lot. And
Hmm.
furthermore, the one thing that impressed me the most of those guys is how much recognition they get from the state. They receive awards from the state,
Yep.
not the other way around where you're like trying to recognize conservation officer of the year or someone within the organization. These guys actually learned how to flip it and do it the other way.
Hmm.
So having back to us having that list of volunteers of saying like, hey, uh, and if someone says they'll volunteer, I don't take that as like every single time we call, they're going to jump up and take off and come
Right.
show up at our project. I get that, but having that long list of volunteers and really just trying to get that commitment of saying like, hey, man, if you can just show up for one project a year, and our window of projects is really small.
Yeah.
Like we don't typically want to go past August one. It gets too unbearably hot and we get in that fire danger issue. And my organization does not want to be responsible for something like that.
Yep.
But we're also working around calving season, moving cattle from pasture to pasture, doing those things. But just, man, if you can volunteer and you can show up for one project, that would just be awesome because we can accomplish a lot. We personally don't have a problem farming out our, we'll put out a notice to, if North American Pronghorn Foundation reached out and said, "Hey, we've got a project coming up," I'd be like, "I'll send out. You send me the deets. I'll send it to our volunteer list and send them out there." We're just always asking, like, um, just give us a little bit of credit for showing up, so people see who we are and that we actually our people showed up and our people helped.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the membership volunteering, that's kind of really where it's at. We don't need any equipment. Everything at this point has been paid 100% out of pocket uh, by all of us, whether it was setting up that domain for the website or all the gas that we spend going to places. This last group, we didn't do any meals because we were trying to get out of there before it got too hot. But I know that that's one of our Arizona's got a food trailer.
Hmm.
If they literally show up, they've got a group of people that's their only job is they show up and make breakfast, lunch, and dinner, steaks too.
Wow.
I don't know if I'm going to get there. Ham Sammies are kind
Yeah.
of where it's at.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, they've been around a long time.
they have,
They've done a ton of great work in a state with not that many pronghorn. In fact, a shrinking pronghorn number.
yeah,
Uh, but they've done great work. Just like if you look at where you'll be in 10 years and 15 and 20 years, people will be like, yeah, Rob, man, that guy over in South Dakota, he was so much help for this group I started. So,
I,
uh,
I'm hoping. I'm definitely like I have positive vibes because I just watched a Kuyu film here a few weeks ago where they were transplanting bighorn sheep,
mhm.
and it was in Arizona, and I saw those great big portable, I call them porta kennels, that they'll load the sheep into, and then they open it up. Right, the
Yeah.
front of every one of those porta kennels had an Arizona Antelope Foundation sticker on the front of
Mm.
all those.
Wow.
So you know who had funded that, and you know had put it out there, and
Yeah.
but not only the other thing too, where some of our dollars will go to is like we've put it out there with Game and Fish. I'm like, if you want to buy collars, let
Right.
us know. If you have one of the universities wanting to work on a project, or they have a study, let us know. We'll help out with that to get some callers out there. But we want to be a part of it. You know, like we want to see the data. We want to participate. If you need help capturing and collaring them, like that's the other part of how you get people involved.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It is fun. That's one thing we try to do in all of our volunteer and conservation videos, whether it's fence poles or transplants of animals or relocations, is try to make it fun
yep,
because they are fun. You get to meet people. If you've just got into hunting or you've just moved to a new area or you're trying to get involved, those events are the quickest shortcut to hanging around and getting introduced to similar minded people,
yeah,
and they're going to see you there making a difference, and they're going to be pretty well, they're let's just say they're going to be more inclined to share with you information than they are if you're just someone who they meet on the street and you
yep,
start talking hunting. So
yep,
everybody has some time some talent or some treasure. Uh, I don't know anyone who's got all three. Uh, but if you do have all three, apply as much of it as you can towards the cause of wild places and wild things. But most of us have one of them, and if we can help out in some way to do that, uh, wildlife's in a better place. And in this case, the pronghorn, not the antelope, but the pronghorn of
Speed
South
goats.
Dakota.
The speed goats.
Yeah, goat. I would refuse to call them a goat. They're not a goat. I mean, I never look at a goat. You put a goat there and then put a pronghorn there. Nobody's even going to even think of one of them as a goat. But I get it. It's
Just say
another
it.
name.
Do it for the kids.
There you go.
Do it for
One
the
in doubt.
kids.
Yeah. Well, Rob, I really appreciate all you do. You've become a very trusted person. You share so much information with me about the goings on in South Dakota and help keep me more aware of a lot of stuff that maybe I'd otherwise not have reason to know. You're an inspiration.
Appreciate that.
I don't think that you have a spare minute of your day that isn't at least got 30 seconds of it allocated to thoughts about wild places and wild things. And
It's definitely important to me for sure, and I
yeah,
appreciate it too.
yeah. So South Dakota Antelope Foundation.com.
Or you can email us at info@sdantelopefoundation.org.
Okay. You got a Facebook or Instagram page or
We have an
anything?
Instagram and Facebook. Now you're asking me all kinds of technical
I don't
questions.
know how to use that stuff, so I'm just going to tell people who know how to use social media, they'll find you then now that they know the South Dakota Antelope Foundation does have a Facebook and Instagram page. Okay.
It's our Instagram is SD_Antelope Foundation.
Okay.
So Facebook, I'm not much of a Facebooker, but we do have our Facebook page.
Well, I'm going to let you go,
All
but
right.
thanks again. Thanks for
Yeah,
this
I
hour
appreciate it.
and whatever hour and 20 minutes here. And thanks for all you do. You
Yeah.
and your board member and board members, and you guys are just doing a lot of great things. And I hope everybody in South Dakota and everyone interested in pronghorn thinks about ways that they can support you guys.
Nope, I appreciate that, Randy, and thanks for making your platform what it is and creating this space for us.
Yeah. How lucky is it that I get to do that, though, Rob?
You are
I,
blessed in that.
I am. I had a young guy here yesterday. He stopped in and he said, "Mr. Newberg, can I ask you some questions?" Yeah, sure. How would I get a job like yours? I said, "Well, have a really good day job for about 30 years." That was my first response. And I think he thought, my impression was he thought I was joking. And I'm not. Uh, but I do feel blessed that in my adult life I get to show up every day and work towards the things that are important to me. So and
Well,
I get
and
to
you
meet some really great people along the way, like you and Julie. So
Nope, I appreciate that. Hopefully you get here to South Dakota again and we get to go hang out. And I know you
yep,
drive through every now and then, so you're
yeah,
just gonna have to get a hold of me so and
yeah.
bring the wife in for coffee and cookies.
All right. Well, I've told. Well, she when you sent those cookies, she had one of them. She's like, "Where in the heck did these come from?" I'm like, "Well, we got to go to Rapid City if you want one." Another one. You have a great day, Rob. Thanks for being here.
All right, thank you, Randy.